Let's be honest, when most people hear samurai-inspired westerns, they picture confusion or some offbeat cosplay. But here's the real story. The 1980s created a genre mashup where cowboys and sword wielders crossed paths in wild, unforgettable ways. Why did so many action films from that decade feel like cowboy tales with a katana twist? Ever noticed a Ronin's shadow in the dust? Some of these crossovers will surprise you. The Octagon 1980. If you think the ninja craze started in the late 80s, you need to watch Chuck Norris kicking off the trend way earlier, armed with a cowboy's attitude and a samurai's sense of duty. The Octagon throws Chuck into a world crawling with silent assassins, secret cults, and betrayals lurking around every corner. But strip away the black pajamas, and you're left with a loner on the edge of civilization, living by his own code. That's pure Western DNA. The brilliance of the Octagon is how it blends the American lone wolf mythos with the disciplined warrior traditions of Japan. Norris doesn't just punch and kick his way through the plot. He confronts his own past, faces moral choices, and becomes a wandering avenger, as much a samurai as any gunslinger with a dusty hat. Every stare down, every showdown in the dark is right out of a Western. Just swap the saloon for a dojo. But here's the twist. The film's East meets West energy doesn't feel like a cheap gimmick. The Octagon is a genuine hybrid, proving that you don't need a horse and six-shooter to tell a classic American revenge story. You just need someone willing to fight for something bigger than themselves. The Sword and the Sorcerer, 1982. At first glance, The Sword and the Sorcerer looks like pure fantasy pulp, with ancient castles, evil warlords, and magic flying everywhere. But take a closer look, and you'll see its heart belongs to both the Wild West and the way of the samurai. Lee Horsley's Talon is a rugged, wandering hero, the kind who'd be at home riding into a dusty frontier town or standing at the gates of a besieged castle. The film's setup is pure samurai legend. A lone fighter with a mysterious past is drawn into a desperate struggle, fighting for the oppressed against overwhelming odds. Instead of a katana, Talon wields a triple-bladed sword because, let's be real, it's the 80s, but his code is the same. Protect the weak, punish the wicked, and stay true to your own path, even when everyone else is running scared. Every showdown crackles with tension, every betrayal stings with the bite of old wounds, and every victory comes at a cost. It's a story as old as Kurosawa, told in the language of rock music, fog machines, and wild practical effects. The Sword and the Sorcerer isn't just a fantasy flick, it's a campfire tale, a samurai saga, and a western rolled into one gloriously over-the-top adventure. Shogun Assassin 1980. Shogun Assassin didn't just influence westerns, it dropkicked a generation of filmmakers into obsession with samurai stories. A re-edited, English-dubbed mashup of two classic lone wolf and cub films from Japan, this cult classic became a VHS legend in the West during the 80s, blazing a trail for samurai influences in American pop culture. The film's story is straight out of the Old West. A lone swordsman, betrayed by his own clan, wanders the countryside with his young son, taking on all challengers with unstoppable skill and cold resolve. The gunslinger's six-shooter is swapped for a blade, but the themes, revenge, justice, and honor, are pure frontier myth. What sets Shogun Assassin apart is its relentless energy and visual style. Blood sprays, enemies fall, and our hero's path is lined with danger at every turn. But under the action, it's a tale of a father's loyalty and a warrior's unbreakable code. You can see its influence everywhere, from Tarantino's films to the way American action movies stage their final showdowns. Shogun Assassin is more than a movie. It's the bridge between East and West, showing just how universal the lone hero's journey really is. Lone Wolf McQuade, 1983. Before gritty reboots were cool, Lone Wolf McQuade made the Western anti-hero dangerous again. Chuck Norris, yes, again, is J.J. McQuade, a Texas Ranger so rough he makes Clint Eastwood look like a mall cop. But what makes this film legendary isn't just the tough guy attitude. It's the quiet, haunted, samurai-like solitude. McQuade is a lawman, sure, but he's also an outcast, living on the edge of town with nothing but his dog and his memories. When evil rides in, embodied by David Carradine's kung fu villain, McQuaid doesn't just bring the law. He brings his own code, just as a Ronin would in a samurai drama. There are standoffs at dawn, personal vendettas, and even a brutal final duel that feels straight out of a samurai showdown, just with more denim and fewer kimonos. Every frame drips with mythic tension. Is McQuaid fighting for justice, or is he just too stubborn to back down? That's the classic Western question, made fresh by samurai style. Lone Wolf McQuaid is a slow-burn icon, a film that proves you can update the Western without losing the soul of the samurai wandering warrior. The Warrior and the Sorceress, 1984. If you ever wondered what would happen if Kurosawa's Yojimbo wandered into a post-apocalyptic world, look no further. The Warrior and the Sorceress is a cult favorite that swaps feudal Japan for a barren fantasy wasteland, but keeps the plot almost shot for shot. A mysterious stranger enters a lawless town split by warring factions, then plays both sides to break their grip. David Carradine, channeling both cowboy and Ronin vibes, brings stoic charisma to the unnamed hero. He sizes up the villains, strikes deals with the desperate, and unleashes swordplay with a silent smirk. But it's not just action. The film is a meditation on power, greed, and what it means to follow your own path when everyone else is lost. It's the same DNA that made samurai stories timeless and westerns endlessly cool. What's wild is how the movie blends pulp fantasy and hard-boiled western with sly humor. Sand, swords, and showdowns, it's all here, but twisted in ways only the 80s dared. The Warrior and the Sorceress isn't just a pastiche. It's a tribute that understands why we root for the lone stranger, whether they carry a six-shooter or a sword. Sometimes, the wildest movies are the ones that remember the old rules while breaking every single one. Blind Fury, 1989. Just when you think the man with no name formula can't be reinvented, along comes Blind Fury, a movie that tosses the cowboy hat and gives us a modern samurai with a cane sword and a wicked sense of humor. Rutger Hauer stars as Nick Parker, a Vietnam vet blinded in combat, who learns the way of the sword from villagers overseas. The setup alone is bonkers. An American drifter who can't see, cutting down mobsters and bullies with effortless precision. Blind Fury is more than an action movie with a clever gimmick. It's a tribute to Zatoichi, the legendary Japanese blind swordsman, but transplanted into a world of American diners, dusty backroads, and scuzzy Vegas villains. Every encounter Nick has feels like a classic Western standoff, except the hero doesn't even need to see his enemies coming. Instead of bravado, there's calm, almost zen-like confidence. Hauer's performance is part cool teacher, part wandering Ronin, and always a little mysterious. The best part? The film isn't afraid to go from slapstick to deadly serious, with a hero who's just as comfortable cracking jokes as he is dispatching foes. Blind Fury is a cult gem that proves you can update old legends without losing their soul, and that sometimes the best cowboy rides into town with a sword, not a six-gun. The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, 1981. If you've ever watched The Road Warrior and thought, wait, is Max a samurai in disguise? You're not alone. George Miller's post-apocalyptic masterpiece may be set in the wastelands of Australia, but its story is pure wandering Ronin lore. Mel Gibson's Max is the silent drifter, haunted by his past, rolling into a desperate outpost in need of saving. He has no allegiance, no interest in their troubles, until the moment comes to fight for something greater than himself. The film's structure borrows directly from samurai and Western legends. The village under siege, the outsider with unique skills, the final, high-stakes battle for survival. But what makes it truly inspired is how it fuses these ancient themes with muscle cars, leather jackets, and anarchic punk energy. The enemies are wild, the landscape is savage, and every moral line is drawn in blood and gasoline. Max doesn't speak much, but his actions echo those lone warriors of Japanese legend, the kind who might not want to be heroes, but are doomed to become them. The Road Warrior didn't just define the action genre, it reimagined what a modern Western could be, one dust storm and souped-up rig at a time. Ghost Warrior 1984. Ever wondered what happens when you drop a real samurai into 1980s Los Angeles? Ghost Warrior answers that with a wild blend of fish-out-of-water comedy, action, and genuine samurai pathos. The story kicks off when a centuries-old samurai, Yoshimitsu, is found frozen in ice and revived by modern science. Suddenly, he's loose in a neon-lit city that doesn't speak his language or understand his code. But Yoshimitsu hasn't forgotten who he is, a warrior sworn to protect the innocent and follow a strict code of honor. What makes Ghost Warrior so much fun isn't just the sword fights in shopping malls or the culture clash gags, it's the way the movie respects the samurai's stoic discipline, even as he faces off against modern thugs. He's a lone hero lost in a new world, every bit the classic Western outsider, except he's slicing through bad guys with a katana, not a six-shooter. The film plays with the idea of honor in a society that's left those values behind. Yoshimitsu's presence forces everyone around him to rethink their own ideas of bravery, loyalty, and what it means to fight for something. Ghost Warrior is a rare, genuinely sincere genre mashup, equal parts action flick, urban western, and samurai legend, all wrapped in a VHS-ready package that could only exist in the 1980s. The Outsider 1980. You want a literal East meets West showdown? The Outsider delivers. This overlooked gem follows a Japanese samurai who travels to the American West in search of revenge and redemption. It's not just a story about cultures clashing, it's about the universal search for justice in a lawless land. As the samurai crosses paths with outlaws, cowboys, and settlers, every scene pulses with tension, respect, and the weight of tradition. What makes The Outsider fascinating is how it doesn't pick sides. Instead, it lets the codes of both worlds collide and blend, forcing characters to question their own beliefs. The samurai's strict discipline and relentless drive set him apart, but also earn him the respect and, eventually, the fear of those around him. The film's dusty towns and sprawling plains might look like classic Western fare, but the sword fights and quiet moments of honor make it something new. In the end, The Outsider stands as proof that the American frontier and feudal Japan aren't as far apart as they seem. Both worlds honor strength, loyalty, and sacrifice, and both find a kind of salvation in the story of a lone warrior walking a dangerous path. The Protector 1985. Before Jackie Chan was a household name in the West, he took a swing at the buddy cop genre with The Protector. What most people miss is how much this gritty New York adventure borrows from both westerns and samurai flicks. Jackie plays Billy Wong, a cop who's lost everything except his sense of duty. He's got a partner who's all attitude, a city that doesn't care, and a mission that will test every bit of his resolve. At its core, The Protector is about two men with nothing in common, except their own personal codes, fighting a corrupt world with their fists, wits, and a stubborn refusal to quit. It's classic Western territory, the outsider lawman, the corrupt bosses, the town or city that needs saving. But Jackie's brand of action is pure samurai discipline, tight choreography, acrobatic stunts, and a refusal to use violence for anything but justice. The film's story might be a product of its time, but the fusion of East and West is unmistakable. Jackie Chan brings the precision and heart of a samurai to the chaos of an American crime story. The result is a film that's more than just a punch-up. It's a cross-cultural brawl with a code of honor right at its core. The Last Warrior, 1984. Buckle up. The Last Warrior isn't your typical jungle action flick. Beneath its pulpy exterior lies a storyline that channels the best of both the samurai and Western traditions. Picture this: a ragtag group of mercenaries forced to defend a village against ruthless warlords. Sound familiar? That's because it's straight out of the playbook of both the Seven Samurai and a dozen classic westerns. What sets The Last Warrior apart is its refusal to pick a single genre lane. The film is drenched in 80s excess, but its core is all about sacrifice, honor, and loyalty. The mercenaries, each with their own checkered pasts, must come together for a cause bigger than themselves. The village becomes their battleground and, more importantly, their redemption. Every clash in the jungle feels like a showdown on the frontier or a rain-soaked standoff outside a Japanese castle. And don't let the title fool you. Every character here gets their moment to shine. Whether it's a gunslinger's last stand or a swordsman's vow, the movie treats every act of bravery as a brushstroke in a wild, sweaty mural of honor versus chaos. The Last Warrior is proof that you can find samurai heart and Western grit even in the unlikeliest of action movies. The Postman Fights Back, 1982. Who says you need cowboys or katanas to tell a samurai Western? The Postman Fights Back is a Hong Kong adventure that mashes up genres in true 80s fashion, with a plot that's pure wandering hero legend. Chow Yun-fat and his companions play a group of unlikely heroes on a dangerous mission, journeying through snowy mountains and lawless villages to deliver a mysterious package. The DNA of this movie is all about outsiders facing impossible odds. Sound familiar? Like a lone samurai defending the helpless, or a cowboy riding into a town torn apart by bandits, these postmen fight for more than gold. They're up against crooked warlords, deadly assassins, and a world where the strong prey on the weak. But what really sells it is the sense of camaraderie and personal code that binds them. Every brawl, every betrayal, every last-ditch effort is about standing up for what's right, even if it means going out in a blaze of glory. The Postman Fights Back delivers high-octane action, breathtaking scenery, and a sense of honor that crosses every cultural boundary. This isn't just a martial arts movie, it's a reminder that the spirit of the samurai and the cowboy are alive and kicking, even when the heroes carry mailbags instead of swords. Tampopo, 1985. If you ever thought the lone gunslinger and the ramen chef had nothing in common, Tampopo is here to prove you wrong. This ramen western isn't just a quirky Japanese comedy. It's a loving send-up of the western and samurai genres, full of duels, mentors, and the relentless pursuit of a noble goal, creating the perfect bowl of noodles. Director Juzo Itami fills every frame with affectionate nods to cowboy and samurai tropes. There's the mysterious stranger, a truck driver in a cowboy hat, the downtrodden townsfolk, local cooks and foodies, and a series of culinary showdowns that play out with all the tension of a high-noon gunfight. Each encounter with a rival chef feels like a samurai duel, fought not with swords, but with soup spoons and secret recipes. But Tampopo isn't just a spoof. It's a heartfelt exploration of community, mentorship, and finding one's place in the world. The hero's journey, the code of honor, the quest for mastery, it's all here, dressed up in a bowl of ramen and served with a wink. In the end, Tampopo stands as proof that the spirit of the Western and the samurai epic can survive and thrive in the most unexpected places. The Challenge, 1982. Scott Glenn never looked more intense than in The Challenge, a movie that grabs the East meets West concept and refuses to let go. Glenn plays Rick, an American boxer pulled into a deadly feud between two brothers in Japan. What starts as a simple job quickly becomes a crash course in Bushido, loyalty, and what it means to truly fight for something. The film is packed with sword duels, ancient grudges, and training montages that would make even Rocky jealous. But underneath all the action is a story about a lost man discovering a new code, a way of life that's part cowboy stoicism, part samurai discipline. The Japanese countryside stands in for the frontier, and every character is forced to reckon with their past in order to earn redemption. What really makes The Challenge pop is its refusal to paint anyone as purely good or evil. The lines blur, alliances shift, and everyone's forced to choose a side based on honor, not just survival. By the time the final battle comes, it's clear. This is a samurai western through and through, even if the pistols have been swapped for katanas and the cowboy boots for tabi socks. Red Heat, 1988. Think samurai stories only happen in ancient Japan. Try telling that to Ivan Danko, the stone-faced Soviet cop in Red Heat. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Danko is the ultimate outsider, an unbreakable lawman with an unyielding code, dropped into the chaos of 80s Chicago to chase down a ruthless criminal. He might not wield a sword, but his sense of honor and justice is as sharp as any blade. Red Heat is a buddy cop movie on the surface, but peel back the jokes and car chases, and you'll see all the elements of a classic samurai western. The lone enforcer from a distant land, the reluctant partnership, the collision of values, and the high-stakes showdowns in the city's darkest corners. Danko's straight-laced discipline bounces off Jim Belushi's wisecracking cop, but it's the moments of mutual respect and sacrifice that drive the story. It's this tension, the outsider's code clashing with local chaos, that gives Red Heat its staying power. Every step Danko takes is like a wandering Ronin in a modern-day frontier, fighting for order in a world gone mad. The movie is a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one hero with an iron will to clean up the wildest of towns, even if that town is Chicago. 16. Blood of Heroes, The Salute of the Jugger, 1989. Some movies create their own worlds so convincingly you almost forget you're watching a mashup of old legends. Blood of Heroes is one of those. Set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, it's about teams who battle in a brutal sport called Jugger, a gladiator game that feels part football, part street fight, and all survival. But beneath the dust and violence, you'll spot the unmistakable shape of a wandering samurai tale fused with a dusty western. Rutger Hauer's Sallow is the ultimate wandering master, scarred, mysterious, and carrying the burden of lost glory. When he finds a new team in a forgotten village, the story shifts into familiar territory. Outcasts fighting for dignity, led by a teacher who has nothing left but his code. The team trains, faces impossible odds, and ultimately challenges the corrupt elite in the league, a journey that echoes the way samurai would help the weak, or how a cowboy rides into a hopeless town. Blood of Heroes isn't just an action movie, it's about legacy, honor, and carving out hope in a world that's forgotten both. Every bruised face and broken bone is a badge of perseverance. If you ever wondered what happens when you blend the Seven Samurai with Mad Max, look no further than this raw, underrated gem. Steel Dawn, 1987. Patrick Swayze, a sword, and the scorched earth of a dying world, Steel Dawn wears its samurai western heart on its sleeve. Swayze's character, simply known as Nomad, wanders the desert with a past he can't outrun and a blade he wields with near-mythic skill. If that setup doesn't scream Lone Ronin, nothing does. When Nomad stumbles upon a small settlement under siege from water-hoarding warlords, he can't help but get involved, even though every instinct tells him to keep moving. What follows is a classic defense of the innocent, as Nomad trains townsfolk, faces off against his own old rival, and ultimately chooses to stand for something greater than himself. The movie leans into every iconic beat: the showdown at high noon, the quiet moments of reflection, and the final, selfless act of a hero. Steel Dawn may be packed with B-movie charm, cheesy one-liners, and plenty of dust, but at its heart is a timeless story of redemption. It's a reminder that the code of the samurai and the cowboy isn't just for history books, they're for anyone fighting to protect what matters, even at the end of the world. So, what did we learn from this wild ride through the 1980s? Cowboys and samurai aren't just relics, they're blueprints for every hero who walks alone, faces impossible odds, and fights for something worth believing in. Did any of these unexpected crossovers surprise you? Or do you have your own favorite samurai western mashup the world needs to know about? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more genre deep dives, and keep your eyes open, because sometimes the wildest heroes show up where you least expect them.